We've got a handful of teams headed to Orlando next month that are fighting for that final spot in the NBA playoffs. The reality of it is, none of these 9 teams that are fighting for that final playoff spot have a shot at winning the NBA Finals. I compare the NBA to the NFL an awful lot on this podcast. In the NFL, a wild card team, for example, has a legitimate chance at winning the Super Bowl. Sometimes the wild card team does win the Super Bowl. Hell, in some cases, you could have a wild card team actually be the favorite on the road in the divisional round of the playoffs. In the NFL, it's a little bit more even keel. There's more parity. That's not the case in the NBA. The lower seeds in the playoffs have a better chance at being hit by a bus mid-court than winning the NBA Finals. When it comes to the 8 seed itself, they have a better chance at passing an alley-oop of Jesus than lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy. In the history of the NBA, there have only been 5 8 seeds that have pulled an upset over the number 1 seed. Most recent time it happened was 2012, when the 8-seeded Sixers upset the Bulls. But I really don't count that upset. I don't count it because Derrick Rose went down with an injury that altered the course of his career in Game 1 of that series. Now, perhaps the most famous number 8 over number 1 upset in the NBA was back in 2007 when the Warriors upset Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavs. That was a legitimate upset. That shocked the NBA world. There are only a couple of teams in the Eastern Conference that have a shot at the number 8 seed. Only a couple that are traveling to Orlando. The Magic right now are the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, trailed by the Wizards and the Nets. Kevin Durant has come out and he has said that I ain't coming back for this postseason run or this attempt at a postseason run. Kyrie Irving, not coming back. The Nets don't even have a fucking coach. So their season is essentially over. And no one gives a fuck about the Washington Wizards. They are the NBA equivalent to the Washington Redskins or the Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals. They are a lower tier NBA team. Bradley Beal is wasting his career in DC. The Wizards are the worst defensive team in the NBA. Season over. Orlando is going to be the number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference. And that's about all I'm going to say about the chase for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference because who really gives a fuck? It is 3 irrelevant teams that no one really cares to watch. But the chase for the 8th seed in the Western Conference is going to be interesting. I'm going to briefly break down each of the 6 teams that are vying for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. And I'm going to tell you why 5 of these teams are not going to make the playoffs. I'm going to give you my prediction of who is going to be the 8th seed. I'm going to start with the Phoenix Suns. Now let's be honest. The Suns have no chance at making the playoffs. They're just too young, too inexperienced. This was always going to be a developmental type season for Phoenix. It's Monty Williams' first season as head coach. They are building a young nucleus of players with Devin Booker leading the charge. The playoffs for the Suns is really going to be the 8-game regular season that starts July 31st. Their starting 5 of Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Kelly Oubre Jr., Ricky Rubio, Mikal Bridges. They have only played a combined 226 minutes all season. Now, they've posted the second best net rating in the league during that 226 minutes, which is a great thing for the future of the Suns, but that is not a lot of time on the court together to compete for a playoff spot this year in an 8-game stretch. You add to that the 4-month layoff. An 8-game regular season is just not going to be enough for the Suns to develop any type of rhythm, develop any type of chemistry to make a playoff push. Not when you have teams like Portland, who are more experienced, or New Orleans, who had developed a nice rhythm with Zion Williamson returning when the season was postponed back in March. The Suns are one of the worst defensive teams in the league, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. They don't have a fucking chance. The 8-game regular season for Phoenix is going to be something for them to build on going into next season. Then we have the San Antonio Spurs. Look, the Spurs should just stay home. There is no reason for them to even head to Orlando. Phoenix has a reason to be there. They need to get more experience for their young players. The Spurs, on the other hand, are at the end of an era. I don't like doubting Greg Popovich. The dude is the Bill Belichick of the NBA. Outside of Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich is the best coach of this generation in the NBA. The Spurs have made the playoffs every year since I was about 10 or 11 years old. That streak is going to end this year. I really question how much Greg Popovich has left in the tank. At this stage of his career, 71 years old, with nothing left to accomplish, I think we're getting to a point where Pop is about to transition off of the sideline in San Antonio, and Tim Duncan is going to take over as head coach. I talked about this a couple of months ago. The Spurs need to rebuild. And when you're not a high-profile free agent destination, which San Antonio is not at this point, you have got to rebuild through the draft. And that's difficult to do when you've been getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs every year. San Antonio is mediocre right now, which is the kiss of death in the NBA. You either want to be at the top or you want to be at the bottom. You don't want to be in the middle of the NBA. The Spurs need to be a lottery team, and they need to go into rebuild. This 8-game regular season is really just a waste of time for San Antonio. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's not coming back because of the surgery he had a couple of months ago. Rudy Gay, DeMar DeRozan, both of those guys need to be traded. The Spurs, in my opinion, should just tank this 8-game regular season, get the best draft pick that they can, and begin rebuilding with Tim Duncan leading the charge. The Sacramento Kings. Let's get to the Kings. Unlike the Spurs, they actually have a reason to participate in Orlando, but they have got zero chance at making the playoffs. Much like Phoenix, they need to use this 8-game stretch to see what they have going into next season. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Sacramento. Similar situation to Phoenix. Young team that was plagued by inconsistency all season. Not going to be able to find a rhythm after 4 months off. The league shutdown was actually terrible for the Kings. They were winners of 7 of their last 10 games and making a real push for the playoffs before Adam Silver shut the league down. That's all gone now. Done. This roster in Sacramento is full of players that have question marks on them. We don't really know if Buddy Hield will ever be a star that he has the potential to be. Some games he comes out, he is unbelievable. Some games he looks like dog shit. The 8-game regular season will reveal a lot about this young Kings roster. They usually fold against quality opponents. This will be 8 pressure-packed games to see if Buddy Hield and the young Kings roster can actually rise to the occasion. And if they can't rise to the occasion, if they look like shit in this 8-game stretch, maybe Sacramento has some thinking to do. Maybe they'll go back into the 20-year rebuild that they have been in since 2001, 2002. All right, enough of the bullshit. Let's get to the 3 teams that actually matter in the Western Conference. The real contenders for the 8th seed. We're going to start with the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are the current 8th seed in the West. By mid-August, they will be sitting at home watching the playoffs on TV, just like you and me. The Grizzlies are the team with the most pressure on their shoulders coming into the restart of the regular season. They are 3.5 games ahead in the standings. But they could finish the 8-game regular season and still not qualify for the playoffs. They could finish with the 8th seed in the regular season, still not qualify. If the number 9 seed is within 4 games and Memphis is number 8, they move into the play-in tournament. It is a lot of pressure for a team that has no experience dealing with it at an NBA level. Memphis has got a rookie head coach, untested. The only star on this team is Ja Morant, another rookie. You take the entire Memphis roster, minus Jonas Valanciunas. They've got around 1,100 playoff minutes combined. Dame Lillard in Portland has nearly 2,100 minutes in the playoffs, 1,000 more than the bulk of the entire Memphis roster. They traded one of their veteran centerpieces in Jay Crowder in exchange for Justice Winslow. He's only played 11 games this season, and now he has got the added pressure of learning his place on this team with only 8 games to do it and Memphis in the middle of a playoff push. Look, Ja Morant and the Grizzlies were a nice story this season. No one expected much out of him. He's probably going to be Rookie of the Year, but Memphis as a whole, they're just not as good as Portland and New Orleans. And to be honest, the NBA doesn't want the Grizzlies in the playoffs anyway. So that brings us to the Pelicans and the Blazers. The only 2 teams left in the Western Conference. The only 2 teams that have a legitimate shot at making a first-round series with the Lakers remotely interesting. New Orleans was rolling before the league was shut down. The beginning of the season was rough for the Pelicans, but once Zion Williamson debuted in January, things began to come together. The Pelicans were 11-8 with Zion in the lineup. Portland, on the other hand, going to be fully healthy for the first time this season. They'll have virtually the same team, the same core group of players that they had last season when they made the Western Conference Finals. The league shutdown was actually a blessing for the Trailblazers. Both Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum were battling nagging injuries in March when the league was shut down. That being said, the Pelicans are going to take the number 8 seed, and here's why. The NBA is going to schedule games based on the remaining strength of schedule each team had before the league was shut down. New Orleans had the easiest remaining schedule in the league. Portland is going to be matched up against teams like Boston, Philly, Houston, Dallas. While the Pelicans will be playing Sacramento, Utah, the Clippers, San Antonio, Orlando, and more importantly, they should have 2 games against the Grizzlies. Portland will be 100% healthy, but how long is it going to take for Nurkic and Zach Collins to get back into game shape, get back into rhythm? The 4-month break will end up benefiting the Pelicans. We're going to see Zion Williamson in better shape than he was when he debuted back in January, perhaps in the best shape of his career. New Orleans offensively, first in points per game, first in assists per game, second in offensive rebounds, second in total rebounds. In other words, the Pelicans are one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. They've already developed the rhythm that Portland is going to be working on, that Memphis will be working on with Justice Winslow added to the lineup. Pelicans-Lakers is the series that we all want to see in the first round. And more importantly, Pelicans-Lakers is the series Adam Silver and the NBA front office want to see. It's the series ESPN, ABC, TNT want to see. Realistically, and I'm being honest here, the Pelicans don't have a chance at knocking off the Lakers in the first round. They're too young. They're too inexperienced. LeBron James would never allow it to happen. With him playing at an MVP level, there is no fucking chance he allows the young buck, Zion Williamson, to take over his throne just yet. But LeBron knows it's coming. He knows it's coming soon. He knows that Zion is poised to take over the NBA once he has to relinquish his throne. Portland would have a better shot. Portland would have a better shot at upsetting the Lakers. I'm just not sure 8 games is going to be enough for Nurkic and Zach Collins to play at the level that they played during last year's playoff run. That, coupled along with their schedule, it is going to make it tough for the Blazers to grab that 8 seed. Well, what about the play-in tournament? They could face the Pelicans in the play-in tournament and win. Yeah, that's true. That's not good, though, considering that the Pelicans are 4-0 this season against Portland, and most of those games were played before Zion Williamson debuted. So, even if Portland faced New Orleans in a play-in tournament, the likelihood of the Pelicans winning is high. All right, that's all for today. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for me. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Appreciate you guys that have already done so. Leave me a comment in the section below. Who is your favorite to take the 8th seed in the Western Conference and make the playoffs? Who do you think actually has a chance at pulling an upset over the Lakers? Or do none of the remaining teams that are fighting for the 8th seed have a chance? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you have any questions for me, you can email them to BTLKC84@gmail.com. I will see you guys next time.